This is the Timbo Slice podcast featuring Jordan, episode 6. Welcome to the program. We got Timbo Slice here, of course.
And we've also got another guest today. Wow, we've got a lot of people coming on the show these days, Jordan. I mean, we've had Tyler and his friend Jake last time. And prior to that, we had Dan Hoffman for episode 3. So now we've got Kenneth Buu, our fourth guest, former colleague of us here at Exactware. Vegan, libertarian, the man himself, Kenny. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, how are things going since you left Exactware and started your new job? You've only been working there for a week now?
Yeah, I've been working there for 2 weeks, and things have been going,
2 weeks. Okay.
pretty well. It seems like at my current job, so one of the things I really appreciated about working at Exactware in the XA department was that it seemed to be not necessarily perfect, the process, but it seems to be like more of a well-oiled machine, if that makes sense. Like we wouldn't necessarily implement Scrum perfectly, but we would take it seriously and try to improve on our implementation of Scrum. And it seems like the company I currently work at, I'm not saying this is a bad thing per se, but I guess the process doesn't seem as well refined, generally speaking.
They're a little more lax or just undeveloped?
Not I wouldn't say lax, but a little bit more. Yes, undeveloped. In fact, a colleague of mine says... Anyway, a colleague of mine said that it's in a... something to the effect that it's in a... what do you call it?
Immature?
Infant stage.
Okay, yeah.
Right, and I'm not. My intention isn't to bash, right? But
right,
and it seems with the products that we have as of right now, it is working, right?
Okay.
And I think one of the things I've learned just working with different companies over the years is that each company implements their process differently, right?
Right.
And some are more developed than others. Some are more rigid than others.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, there doesn't seem to be one perfect way to implement the development of software, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yes. But anyway, that was a long answer.
Yeah. So other than that, does your new job compare favorably? You like it more there? Anything you miss?
Yeah, well, I do like my current job. I've been only there for 2 weeks again, but so I do like it. I mean, let's be honest. Having a big salary raise helps a lot, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, and I feel that because it doesn't seem to be as developed as my previous experience here at Exactware, since we're in the Exactware office right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that I actually have more to contribute, if that makes sense. That I could be kind of a bigger fish in this other pond.
Right, more problems to solve.
Yeah. And I feel that
right.
with Exactware, I learned a lot about Scrum, about QA, about testing, and so on and so forth, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? And about process. And, and I was integrated into that. And again, I'm not saying that Scrum was implemented perfectly or software development was implemented perfectly, but I feel that I learned a lot being here at Exactware, and I could, contribute more to another pond, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything bad about Exactware that you're glad to be away from? You can be candid, Kenny. You can be candid on our show.
You have to be candid.
Yes.
It's a requirement.
Well, I think this part is a low-hanging fruit, but I would say just how bureaucratic Verisk is over Exactware, and it seemed imposing upon Exactware and just increasingly restrictive of Exactware, and it seemed like the department that I was in, the budget was like gradually slightly decreasing eroding over time.
For sure.
Right. And we didn't have kind of as much benefits or activities as a result of that. So yes, I would say that is a negative.
Sadly, we have seen the same effects.
Still.
Yeah. Yep. In my department. So yeah, I mean, on the one hand, I guess it makes sense as a business to tighten the belt, but on the other hand, it's like there's a balance you have to strike, because the benefits that you give employees not only help you get better employees and keep the really good ones, but I think they can also boost morale and therefore indirectly productivity, right? And so to some degree it makes me wonder if the money that they save by tightening the belt is basically wiped out by lost morale, lost productivity, turnover, that sort of thing, right? I wonder if anybody even looks at that or considers it.
Yeah, and what the irony is I think a couple of years back, the president of Verisk, Scott Stevenson, Scott Stevenson, came and spoke at Exactware, and was telling us, don't worry about money, us having money, because we have
more than we know what to do with.
Yes, we have more.
Is the quote.
Yes, we have more money than we have to do with.
But we know we shouldn't give it to employees.
Right.
Well, that's the implication. But he not only said that once, right? It wasn't just in passing. He kept emphasizing that. And I was just like, is this the best thing to tell us? When you're increasingly restricting our budget, our department budgets.
And then there was that blog he sent out that one year where he was like, Verisk is very competitive in salary. See, here are our averages. And it's like, average salary for, somebody who's entry level. And it was 40% higher than what people are making here. You remember that? Were you here when that happened, Jordan?
Yeah, that was his most responded to blog post, right?
Yes.
So clearly there were some dissenting opinions.
Yeah.
Pretty much every number on there was 40. The average was 40% higher or more than what people here in this office building were making. We were all like, whoa. And they're like, oh, don't worry, that's just because they live in New Jersey and cost of living's higher. And we looked up the cost of living index or whatever, and they only should have been 16% higher or something like that. But then they were making 40% or 50 or 60% more. We're just like, whoa, what is going on? That was probably not a smart move by Scott Stevenson.
Maybe I should have made a move to New Jersey within Verisk,
Yeah.
To make much more, but so one of the things I was grateful for during my time at Exactware was running Ragnar. So Ragnar is a relay run, 12-team relay run, 195 miles, right? And Exactware fully paid. So we fully sponsored and paid for a team. Plus t-shirts, which I thought was nice. Anyway, so this past June I was running Ragnar, and I was overhearing a conversation about how there was. Maybe this is more relevant to Geomni, because I think it was Geomni positions. But Geomni does work in Exactware building.
Right.
If that makes sense. And so there's still...
They're a sister company.
A sister company,
Which shouldn't be a sister company, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Geomni is more or less a sister company.
Or they could be... It's just some of their employees pretty much work directly on an Exactware product. So they could be their own company, but they would need to send some of their employees back to Exactware. They don't want to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's weird.
Yeah, so it's kind of confusing, but yeah, in short, it's a sister company. I was overhearing how there was this open senior art, developer architecture position that's been open for a while, right? And the previous guy who quit and moved on was being paid approximately maybe $90,000 for that position.
Say what?
90,000.
Their senior architect?
Yeah.
That was a crazy job title for that amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that was. Wait, are you saying that's too high or too
It's
low?
way too low.
Way too low.
Okay. So this fits in.
For that job title, I would envision 150 plus.
At least.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're not a senior engineer. Architect is the one that designs the building.
Yeah.
Right? So you are the mastermind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they were so it's been open for a while, and it's not like they haven't been interviewing. They've been interviewing people, but the problem is that apparently the people that have been being interviewed and qualified for the job are asking for actually lower than what you suggested, 120,000. Around that range, or maybe 130,000 or whatnot, but the powers that be won't give, but the managers can't do that because they have to
match the historical salary.
Match the historical salary of the previous guy who quit, which was 90,000.
So in other words, they underpaid a guy severely. He left because he knew they were underpaying him.
Likely.
And now they're trying to replace him, but they're only authorized to replace him with somebody that will make a similar amount of money. And because they were underpaying him so severely, they can't find anybody at that value because it's so below market.
Yeah, and it kind of goes.
Sounds like
kind of goes with the Verisk bureaucracy, because from my understanding, it seems like Verisk is opposing. Well, if the previous guy was at that salary, then you could find another guy.
Though.
So
it's not only Verisk's fault. Here's my problem with it. Okay, so you're right in that I think at the corporate level, they're a little too rigid on salary like this. But their reasoning is always, if that position warranted that much money, why weren't you already paying it? And that is a completely valid question. And so I think it's unfair for people at Xactware or at Geomni to say, oh, it's Verisk limiting us. No. Yes, the limitation is there, but number one, you probably already knew of that limitation. And number two, you're only being caught by it because of your poor management in the first place. So here's an example. So let's say you're a developer and we decide, you know what? We haven't given this guy a raise in a long time. We want to give him 20%. So we go to Verisk and say, can you authorize a 20% raise for this guy? And they'll say, what? 20%? Like, why is he 20% more valuable today than he was yesterday? And because the reason why is because they're expecting that, okay, if he's been working here for 3 years and he's been increasing in value that whole time, why haven't you been giving him raises periodically that whole time? Why are all of a sudden you coming and saying, he needs a huge raise now? What changed? That is that dramatic. That just happened, right? So they want you to explain this magical overnight transformation that instantly made him worth 20% more, right? Instead, maybe he should have been getting a 10% raise every year, right? And so the fact that we don't do that, we neglect people, it means that the system ends up working against us, right? So you have a manager that doesn't give a guy a raise for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then they say, shoot, we got to make up for that. And they can't. They painted themselves into a corner. And so on the one hand, yes, Verisk is rigid in that regard. Sure, maybe they share some of the blame. But the fact that that person who had been increasing in value didn't get a proportional compensation increase over time, that's on the manager. And they painted themselves into a corner. And so I can't have complete sympathy for them because I think the problem is more on their shoulders than on Verisk's. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do understand what you're saying. Perhaps the blame goes on both sides.
Right, but I think still more so on the manager because, I mean, okay, maybe they didn't know that this is how Verisk expects them to do it. but still, like, I don't know, you should be constantly proactive in figuring out what people are contributing and how much they're worth, and whether or not they're being taken care of, whether or not they're happy, that sort of thing. That's what your role is as a leader. On the other hand, though, you could counter-argue by saying that Verisk is limiting enough that it's hard to do that for everybody that deserves it. And I think that's a fair counterpoint. So there might be 5 people on your team of 10 that all are doing well every year and need the constant, increase in their compensation year over year, but maybe Verisk says, oh, you can only promote or give raises to 2 or 3 of them. So there are always going to be people who are neglected because of limited resources. So in that regard, yeah, you could say again that part is on Verisk, and I think that's fair.
Yeah, Verisk does have more power in the equation, right? They just can't be the sole scapegoat.
Right.
Definitely responsible, not for the whole thing, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe that position, I haven't looked it up, but maybe that position is still open till this
Could
day,
be.
perhaps.
So were they on your team in the Ragnar? Or you're just running by them?
No, yeah, well, we were
As
one
Kenneth
team.
was passing them.
no, we were, they were on my team, Russ, and it was exact word sponsored.
They were running so slowly they could have this conversation during the race.
Well, one person runs at a time,
Yeah,
right?
it's relay, right?
Yeah, it's relay.
Hand off a baton even? Or do you just
there was
get to a
what do you call it? Slap on.
a slap bracelet?
Bracelet, yes.
Dude.
You'd slap on the next runner.
So retro.
Yeah.
Well, I guess slap on was popular in the 90s,
80s maybe?
I would
Or was it 80s?
80s. They still existed, I'm sure, in the early 90s, but it feels like the 80s was the golden era of the slap
The
bracelet.
slap bracelet, yes.
Pop
Wow.
culture, huh?
Indeed.
So how long have you been a distance runner?
Since high school.
So you did the cross-country thing?
Yes, I ran cross country and track and field.
All right, so you have to describe the appeal to non-distance runners like Tim and me. It's like neither one of us is going to challenge the health benefits of running. But
Okay.
distance running for pleasure just seems like mental illness to me, right?
Right.
You've got to be imbalanced in the head to enjoy running that much.
Yeah, so I get that because before I even joined cross country or track and field, because I think I joined track and field first. I actually did not like running. When you had to run the mile, during PE class, whether it was middle school or elementary school or high school even.
So you were a normal kid that didn't like that.
Yes, I was a normal
Good.
kid that
All
didn't
right.
like
So
it.
what happened? How did you become broken, Kenneth?
I had a friend that ran track and field, and he encouraged me to do so. I thought, that might be cool, kind of extracurricular activity, right? I push myself, and so I decided to take up track and field in high school, and in some sense, you could say I conditioned myself to enjoy running. I get it. I get why people wouldn't enjoy it or don't like it, and it doesn't seem to be the norm in other countries. Like it's like if you go, from my understanding, not like if you go running in China, right? People are gonna look at you.
I think you're robbing a store or something.
Yeah, or think somebody's chasing you, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like
That man owes child support.
yeah. Or they would look behind you and see if somebody's chasing you or why are you running, right? But yeah, I do find running to be, I guess, meditative. And yeah, where you could, I don't know, maybe if you're running on a trail, you could maybe enjoy
The nature,
the
outdoors.
environment,
So
the
you
outdoors,
can
if will.
clear your mind when you're running? Is that what you're saying? Like you feel peaceful?
Yeah.
Or maybe oneness with the universe? Like,
Interesting.
Well,
is that how you find your zen?
Well, I wouldn't go as far as oneness with the universe, but yeah. So I would say you would be able to feel peaceful, right?
Interesting.
So will you go running like just as like self-therapy if you're feeling stressed or something? There's some tense relationship or pressure at work or whatever it might be.
Yes, and so running does increase endorphins in in your brain, right? And so there's this term called the runner's high.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've not experienced
So
it
you're a
yet.
drug addict then, is what you're telling us.
I've never run so far that I was like, you know what? I just want to keep running forever. Whatever distance I go, I'm like, yeah, I can stop right now. I don't feel great about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, says a runner's high is a feeling of euphoria that is experienced by some individuals engaged in strenuous running that is held to be associated with the release of endorphins by the brain. So, I mean, it is true that running does release endorphins to the brain, right? And so, like, I just remember in high school, especially before a race, right? You would feel nervous, anxiety, feel like, I don't really want to do this. This is going to suck. It's going to be painful, on and on and on, especially before a race, right? But then, like, maybe during the race, or even especially after the race, right? You feel kind of runner's highs, like.
So do you not hit, I've heard runners talk about hitting a wall during a distance race. Do you ever hit a wall where you're just forcing yourself to keep going? Or is it just the beginning part where you have to force and then after that it just flows?
Yes. Well, I have experienced both, actually. And so, actually, this past Ragnar, I did hit a wall while running. I guess to be honest, maybe because I don't run hard enough as I should, but it actually kind of was. This is actually a rare experience for me. So in my last leg in Ragnar we have each individual has 3 legs, and I was actually worried about my second leg because my second leg was the longest. I think my second leg was like, I don't know, 6.4 miles or something like that.
It's pretty long.
And it was like, and so Ragnar labels each leg as easy to very difficult, and mine was labeled, if I remember correctly, very difficult. And there was like a slight incline. Anyway, it was like it was like, so where I was positioned at, it was like our night run. So it was like between midnight and like 7 so we had 2 vans, right? So my vans where we were positioned at, this particular leg was between midnight and like 7 or 6 a.m., right? And so my run started at 4 a.m. and I didn't have a lot of sleep. Anyway, I'm going on and on about it. So I was actually more fearful about that leg, right? But then I finished it and I was like, yes, I did it. I did the hardest run, right? And so in my last leg, which was 5 miles, it was, so it was shorter, right? There wasn't as much, didn't seem to be as much incline, or I looked ahead and it was like pretty straightforward course, right? You just go straight and turn left, and then anyway, right? So mentally, I was like, I got this, right? If I finished this run, this 5 mile run, I did my hardest run, which was my second leg. Finished my other 2 runs. I got this. Anyway, sorry, explaining this a lot. I was like, yeah, I just got to finish this 5 mile run and then I'm done, right? I was like, I trained for this, right? I would train I would sometimes go like like in Saturday mornings, I would go 9 miles to help train myself for this Ragnar, right? I would go 6.2 miles or more during the weekdays. Anyway, so I was like, 5 miles, freak, I got this. Well, during the middle of that run, I just hit the wall, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like,
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
Jordan and Tim are right. Running is stupid.
Yes.
Yeah, I hit the wall. And I'm the type of person. So, I mean, I'll be honest. I'm really not a fast runner. But I'm the type of runner that, like, keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
Like
The tortoise.
Yeah, tortoise. Exactly. Bingo. Right? I'm not Usain Bolt, you know, if you get
You're a
that
stamina
reference.
runner.
But yes.
You're
But
better than Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
but I
You heard it here, folks.
but
Usain Bolt, Kenneth Buu just challenged you to a foot race.
No, I'm
Are you man enough to accept?
I
bet he isn't.
To be really straightforward, I actually am not a fast runner. But, you know, I'm the type of person that just keeps on going, right? Just like, regardless of how slow I am or how fast I am or how long it takes, I just keep on, running or jogging, you know, regardless. And in a rare moment, I hit the freaking wall and I just started walking. And I remember I would like try to run or jog, right? Thinking, okay, I got this. And then I would just walk. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? So it took forever for me to finish that run.
This whole time you have a teammate waiting for you at the other end?
Yes.
And so they could be waiting anywhere from like 2 to 10 hours or something? Like,
well, 2 hours is maybe pushing it. But yeah, so I had teammates waiting for me, and it came to the point where they called me. It was like,
are you still alive? Should we call an ambulance?
Yeah. And by the way, so this was my third Ragnar, and usually what I'm used to is having support. So usually you have, you know, your van, you know, like, okay, meet me in 1 mile or meet me in 1.5 miles, or I'm good. I'll just run the rest of the way, right? Type of thing, right? Where they would stop, you know, wait for you and give you water or whatever you need, right? You know, towel. So the van that I happened to be on happened to take the approach of, yeah, we'll just meet you at the end. Type of thing.
You should have had somebody riding a bike in front of you, like Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
That's right.
Yeah. Right, and I didn't think I needed support, to be honest. And so I had zero support. I was like, holy crap, how am I going to get through this? And so what happened is the guy, a runner, was nice enough to who thought his run was kind of cut short.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this kind of adds to it because it was cut short, and I was the next runner, and so I was running longer than 5 miles apparently.
Oh.
I think it was 5.8 actually, to be more precise. So it was even longer run. But anyway, so he went out for the last mile and waited for me, and then so what was kind of nice is when I hit that kind of mile marker, like the mile left marker, he was kind of running with me. But even then, I was still walking. Anyway, this is a long answer. But yes, you do get that you do hit the wall, especially if you're running Ragnar or I'm imagining a marathon type thing.
So,
or what do you call those? Ultra
marathons?
Marathons or ultra, what do you call it?
Asking the wrong guys,
yeah.
Kenneth.
where you do marathon, swimming,
triathlon,
Ironman type of thing. Yeah. So yes, you say yes. That does happen. We do hit the wall. Anyway, sorry, that was a long. But anyway, so I thought about like what happens, and like, I trained for this. I thought I was ready. I ate 2 Cliff Bars before this run. I thought maybe I had the energy sufficient. I was drinking water, before this run and what happened. And I think, and I thought a lot about this. I even spoke to nutritionists. I spoke to various people about maybe what happened. And I think what happened was I hit heat exhaustion. And even though I was drinking water, I wasn't taking in electrolytes. And so I just ran out of electrolytes. So maybe I should have had a sports mix-in drink or Gatorade, even despite how much sugar it has.
So the moral of the story is you should have taken the sun more seriously, Kenneth. It's always out there trying to kill you. That's why I stay indoors.
Yeah.
Ionizing radiation, no thanks.
Well, I really think, yes, so I should have taken it more seriously, and in the sense that, yes, it was hot. It was like the sun was out, even though it was evening or afternoon. Well, kind of evening, but yes, and I should have been taking in electrolytes, Gatorade, Powerade, or even this other product called Pedialyte, which is actually for kids. But I guess as a father, you would know that product. But it actually has like concentrate of like huge concentrate of electrolytes in this like a small bottle, right? Which would made probably I think would have made a huge difference, and I would have ran that. But anyway, sorry for that long answer about my running experience. So
no need for apologies here.
Yeah,
you're the guest.
Yeah, you can talk about whatever you want, Kenneth.
Including Jordan B. Peterson. I know you and Tim both follow him.
Yeah.
And you went to an event together.
And have you finished the book?
No.
See, you were outside in the sun running instead of reading this important book?
No, I have not finished the book 12 Rules for Life and Antidote to Chaos, but I'm still progressing through it, and I do enjoy the book. And I have been listening.
Right on.
And I have been listening to Jordan Peterson's podcast.
Nice.
A lot of them are his lectures that he gave during that one tour in which he visited 100 plus cities I'd imagine. So still a big fan of Jordan B. Peterson. I still share the good news of Jordan B. Peterson to others.
What rule are you on in the book, Kenneth? Are you embarrassed to say?
Yes, yes, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, but I'm on still on rule 3.
Oh, Kenneth.
So
this guy is not an alpha lobster.
No. Got to read more, man. Come on. We got to talk about it when you're done,
Yeah. So do you guys talk about Jordan B. Peterson a lot?
No.
No.
Sometimes.
I read the book. I mean, we talk about it when Tim brings it up. I just wondered if he'd done anything lately. You might not follow him as closely as Tim does.
Well, what did you think of the book?
It was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah? Did it change your life, or was it more like, it was a good book?
Did it change my life? I don't know that it changed my life, but I thought about lots of his ideas in there for a while after reading the book. Probably the one I think about most often is his principle on parenting, that you shouldn't let your children do things that makes you not like them. Mm-hmm. Just preparing them to function in society at large, right? That if they can't interact well with you in a family setting, then they're going to struggle later on when they have to interact in a work setting or some other social setting where they have to interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually haven't gotten to that part yet, but I have.
I just spoiled it.
Yeah.
But I have heard him, because I've listened to so many hours of him talking. I have heard him talk about that, right? That the responsibility as a parent is to essentially make your kid likable.
Yeah. Socialize is the word he likes to use a lot. You're supposed to socialize them. Yeah.
Yeah, and to make sure that other kids want to play with, or would like to play with your kids. Mm-hmm. Because the opposite would have long-term negative effects.
You end up like me, Kenneth, when that happens. Antisocial and weird.
I wouldn't call you antisocial.
I don't know. Maybe.
Even if it's not your bag, even if it's not something you're really into, it seems to me you have more friends than is average in your workplace.
Maybe so.
I think most folks don't even come close to getting outside of their silo.
I have moved around a lot, though, so I think that's part of it. But
you have? Well, you also initiated the potluck thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with Tim in the sense that I feel that I've been on that spectrum of not being socialized well, generally speaking.
Yeah. I mean,
anyway.
What I like to say is the book I wish I had when I was like 15, 16, you know?
Could you have read the book at that age?
I don't know.
There are so many tangents.
I don't know. Maybe, but a lot of the messages I wish I just had been exposed to earlier, you know? At least just maybe the generic messages of like, you know, here's what life is, here's what you should do, you know, be responsible, accomplish things. I don't know. Maybe. It's just kind of the way I feel that maybe I needed a little bit more guidance when I was transitioning into adulthood, I guess.
Yeah. So you wouldn't have extended adolescence?
Maybe. Yeah.
I had extended adolescence.
I think everybody does these days.
Yeah, it's just the world that we live in America.
Yeah.
Right? Go to college. What am I going to do in college? I'm going to do college student stuff.
Yeah. And why? You know, like, I had a really hard time deciding what to study in college just because I didn't know what to do with my life, right? So I kind of just wandered around a lot.
Yeah, so I'm a big, you know, well, I think this kind of like, speaking of college, I think this kind of overlaps with my libertarianism a bit. But yeah, I just don't, I generally, so no offense to you, Tim, if you do, or yeah, if
I'm already taking offense.
Yeah.
or if
Note to self: do not invite Kenny back.
Yeah, if you do, if you do, anyway, send your kids to public schools, but you know, as a libertarian, I don't generally trust the public schools,
Right.
Right, and so I would trust the so I would trust more private schools, right?
So you're talking about the information they'd present in the classroom? What do you
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
when you say not trust? Like the information?
Yeah. I would say the information and the environment. You know, as a libertarian, as one who doesn't trust in governments in general, right? If the public schools are run by the government, the information that they would provide would be generally, you know, biased towards, you know, the government version of things.
So I don't disagree with you, but my counterpoint would be, I think a lot of who I am today, a lot of the mistrust of authority that I have is a result of having survived public school. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I've often heard people who have, for example, like survived Soviet Russia talk about how Americans don't understand the dangers of things like socialism, communism, authoritarianism. And they ask for it because they don't know what they're asking for. They didn't have to live through it. And so, to some degree, I feel like public school gave me the chance to live through a bureaucratic, glorified babysitting garbage authoritarian system. And it taught me, you know, what it's like, right? So, I mean, I think there's at least some value in that.
Well, yeah. So I went through K through 12, right?
Yeah.
All public schools, and well, I even went to preschool. I guess maybe that's private, but and so I am. I mean, it is what it is. I went through it, right, and had experiences and made friends and met people, right, and learned things, you know, by experience or whatnot, right. And I'm grateful for that experience. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, like I think public schools, yeah, generally speaking, I just wouldn't, at this point in my life, I just wouldn't trust public schools, if that makes sense. And so I would more advocate for private schools or homeschooling, right? Where, well, generally it is the primary responsibility, or should be the primary responsibility of parents to educate their children, right? And again, no offense to those who do send their kids to public schools. You know, maybe I will do the same just because, but anyway.
It also depends on what financial situation you're in, right? Like, when my kids first started becoming school age, I didn't have the means to pay for private education. And, you know, the problem with it, too, is, like, first of all, private institutions can't compete on price because they're competing against something that's free. So instead, they try to cater to the premium crowd, right? Which is why private schools tend to be expensive. Mm-hmm. Second, if you send your kids to private school, you're still paying for public school because it's still coming out of your taxes.
Yeah.
So you're double paying for education. So it's hard to not send your kids to public school unless you have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a lot of kids.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, as a government-run institution, it is mandated, right? And so it's mandated that you do have to pay taxes on those, regardless if you have kids or not, regardless if you send, even if you have kids, regardless if you send your kids, to them or not, right? If you do send your kids, then they're mandated to be in school, you know, from, you know, a certain time to anyway.
Yeah.
At a certain period of time during the day, right? And if they happen to be outside of the school, then the police has the right to charge the parents, or, you know, for I don't know, for criminal neglect, for allowing their kids to not be in school. It's almost like a prison of sorts, if that makes sense.
And we come from a state where all schools are completely enclosed by fences. That's something that is weird to me to not see here. I'm used to having, I don't even know, like 20-foot tall fences. Maybe they're not that tall. Maybe since I'm taller now than I was back then, I'm not gauging the height well. It's probably at least 8 to 10 feet tall fences, right? Probably not 20. Yeah, it's probably more like 8 to 10 feet tall chain link fences. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you're confining education. You're limiting education by just saying, you know, everything that's relevant that you need to learn has to be confined within, you know, these physical borders of the school. I don't know, rather than maybe exploring nature. I don't know, or going to museums, or visiting.
I don't have as much of a problem with the location. I don't know. I think my biggest problem is that it seems like the incentive system for making it effective is messed up, because I would say there may be only like 2 or 3 teachers in my entire public education history that were actually halfway decent. Probably 2 or 3 that were good. The rest of them were just kind of like, you know, babysitters or disengaged or not very good, you know. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think the curriculum was particularly well done. I don't think many of the teachers were quality educators. I was in high school in, what year was it? 1996, I think, was when I was in 9th grade. And I took a typing class, and we typed on typewriters. Why? In 1996, why were we learning to type on typewriters? What a joke.
Yeah, that is weird. I did the same thing. Was it 9th grade? Yeah, 9th grade. It was keyboarding. I thought it was going to be a computer class.
Yes.
Nope. Typewriters.
Typewriters.
Just
Why?
odd.
How? I don't know, it's very slow to adapt to new technology, to new. Yeah. Like, I bet if we designed education systems with what we know today, they would look far different than what they actually are. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's just still too much inertia in how things have always been done, so we don't adopt new technologies. We don't conform to research that shows, the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of different methodologies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I'm no expert on the subject, so I can't really elaborate much more than that. But at least my experience, I thought, even at the time, was subpar. And then I see my kids basically getting the same exact treatment that I did, So I don't know that it's really improved very much in the last 20 to 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've actually talked to a friend of mine who teaches for a living, and well, there's a lot more I can say about public schools, but so I was kind of giving her my spiel, like in more detail than what I've given here about public schools, and she actually agreed with me. She was like, "Yeah, you're right."
Does she teach at a public school?
Yeah, she does. Yeah, and she was like, "Yeah, if I had kids, I'd probably try to avoid sending them to public schools." And I've even heard like stories of former teachers, like interviews of teachers who taught in public schools, who once they started having kids, they quit and started doing homeschool because they just couldn't. They just didn't like the system, how the system was run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
But sorry, this is a long response. But so how it relates to college is government also intervenes in the higher education industry, in which it subsidizes the higher education industry, right?
Which in turn allows institutions to raise their prices.
Yeah. So
which is
it
why the price of
encourages
education inflates so much. Yes.
Yeah. So even before that, what causes that is encourages people to obtain a college degree, right? Which inflates, as you were saying,
increases demand.
Increases demand, inflates the number of people that are going to get college degrees. People that would otherwise would have taken a different path, or that would perhaps been better for them, right? And as a result, it increases the tuition costs, right? It skyrockets because it's being subsidized.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why not increase the tuition, or why not, make dorms a bit more posh anyway, right? And as a result, tuition gets high, and students, once they graduate, or college graduates, tend to get in tons of debt.
Yeah. It's the new American dream.
Yeah, and
carry your student debt and a mortgage for the rest of your life. Oh, also a car. You got to have an expensive car,
But yeah, and the more you have of something, the less value it has, right? And so when you inflate the number of graduates,
I don't know if I completely agree with that.
Totally. I think
the value as a filtering mechanism, sure, but I don't think there's the value of having an educated populace decreases.
No, it decreases. Well, no, I disagree. It decreases the
your
value
marketability
of the marketability. Yes, which as a result, right? And I think that's synonymous of decreasing the value of a college degree, right?
Employers need a filtering mechanism, and typically they've used bachelor's degrees as a filtering mechanism. It used to be high school.
Yeah, it used to be high school.
And now it's starting to become a master's.
Yeah.
So, yes, as far as the whole signaling system or filtering system goes for hiring people, yeah, it does reduce the value to have more people that have it. But as far as education itself goes, or capability or competence, I don't think increasing the amount of that in the world makes anything worse off.
Education is not synonymous with having a college degree.
That's
like, I think you'd be very well
true.
educated.
I don't disagree, but for example, if we tripled the amount of people going into engineering fields, that may make each person have a harder time getting a job, right? Because there's more competition. But I don't think it in any way diminishes the value of having a bunch of engineers in society, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, well, I'm just saying, like, having a college degree, like a bachelor's degree, doesn't make you stand out because, well, you know, hell,
Yes.
everybody has one.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. The whole filtering and signaling thing is that, yeah. So,
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my point.
Yes, I agree with that point.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe people should be filtering off of something other than a piece of paper, such as accomplishments or, I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, something will come to take its place, something that's harder and more expensive than getting a college degree.
Yeah, so there's this company called Praxis. Have you guys heard of Praxis?
Maybe. What do they do?
Yeah, so Praxis, what they do is they, so it's usually people that are coming from high school or graduated from high school. It kind of serves as an alternative to college route, you know, the 4 years, getting to debt type of route. And again, I speak as a college graduate, so anyway. But and what they do is they hook you up as an intern for an actual company, right? And so you would serve as an paid internship, so it's not like you're doing it for free or for nothing, right? And throughout this internship, you're also supposed to do just various tasks that they kind of assign you to do. And as a result, you know, you actually like gain real experience, right? And you kind of learn on the job and you kind of learn a skill set, right? And a lot of times what happens is after this internship ends, you have something to show for. And rather than say, oh, I just have this college degree, you have like actual work that you can show other employees. Or what happens a lot of times is the company hires you full time, right, off the bat.
Yeah, I imagine that would be somewhat common if you're doing well there, right? They're using that system as a trial.
Yeah. And so, well, not ironically, Libertarian actually created this company called Praxis. And so it's just serving as an alternative to college, right? Where you go kind of directly to the workforce and actually work for a company and actually gain skills on the job, right? And in I don't know, 2 or 4 years time, you know, you will be able to market yourself better, right? And be able to show potential employees like, this is what I've actually done, rather than just say, yeah, you know, I have this piece of paper, so, you know, hire me, and I have this huge debt, you know, that have to pay off for who knows how long.
How much does Praxis cost?
It's a good question. I actually haven't looked at the cost. I don't know. I'm not sure if it costs money, because I imagine. Well, again, I have to look it up. But I'm thinking, and I could be wrong about this, but I'm thinking that maybe the company pays Praxis, but because they.
Maybe it works kind of like a recruiting agency where they skim a little off the top of what the interns are making then.
Yeah, possibly.
Something like that. Kind of like a recruiter that sets up contractors or whatever. Could work like that.
Yeah. So, like, I'm all for kind of apprenticeships, if you will, kind of internships, or just going directly to work, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, even if you start at anyway, maybe it's easier for me to say since I did graduate from college, but maybe even if you like start at the bottom, like there is value in work and kind of working your way up, if you will, right?
Right,
and actually making money and
what you always
being
hear is
involved.
that most people end up in a job that has nothing to do with what they studied anyway, because a lot of degrees don't translate well into careers.
Yeah. Well, and plus in this day and age, right, the digital age in which we live in, I mean, you can, if you have the motivation, right, and the discipline, you can teach yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You can teach yourself, for example, coding, like using free websites, or if you pay a little,
Right. Something like Pluralsight.
Yeah, something like Pluralsight.
One of our future sponsors of this podcast.
That's right.
Pluralsight is, no, I'm kidding.
So do you feel like there was much value in your college experience, Kenny?
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I did go to college.
Did you get very much out of it?
Yeah, like, I mean, I do believe in, like, making the best situation for whatever, wherever you find yourself in, right? And so, yeah, I felt that I had good experiences in college. I in the sense that, like, I made friends, like probably people that I would have never made if I didn't go to college. I picked up hobbies I probably would never have picked up. Like, I know Tim doesn't like this, but, like, dancing. Like, I love. I picked up swing dancing and blues dancing while I was in college. I practiced karate.
Do you still dance, Kenny?
Yeah, I still do. Yeah, in fact, I went dancing last night.
You did?
Whoa!
Yes. Where does one go dancing?
Was at the Riverwoods in Provo. Yeah.
Like at a specific, like, like just in that whole plaza, or like was there like a
dance hall?
Yeah, something. Yeah, more details, Kenneth.
Oh, it was at the Riverwoods of Provo. It was like outdoors because it's kind of summertime.
So was it like a dance party or what? Public?
Yeah, it was kind of a dance party. Yeah, they had DJs and yeah, it wasn't formal, but it was just outdoors, and they were playing, I think, Latin music, which I don't dance to, and then jazz music, which I do dance to, jazz music. So it was kind of a interesting mix of Latin and jazz, which is very different types of dances and songs. But yeah, so I still dance. Yeah, I felt that I probably wouldn't. So there were professors that I really enjoyed, and anyway. Yeah, and I probably wouldn't have grown, spiritually as much, because I did go to BYU, which is a religious school.
And you studied computer science, right?
Yeah, I majored in computer science. I minored in Spanish.
How's your Spanish?
It's could be better. Yeah.
That's a fair answer.
He doesn't like dancing to Latin music, so how good could his Spanish possibly be?
Oh.
Yeah, so, I don't practice Spanish often. Of course, if I lived in Spain, that would be a different story, but I live in the United States, so.
But Spain has different Spanish from where you learned, right? Panama?
Yeah, but I mean, I think if I lived in Spain, I could pick it up, like their lingo, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I just thought it was
Jargons
interesting
that
that
they
you
use.
mentioned Spain when you know Central American Spanish, not European Spanish.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about it. Where did they get their Spanish?
Oh, of
From
course,
Central America, they got
right,
it from
but-
Spain. In South America, they got it from Spain.
For
right?
sure. But
I mean, grammatically, it's still
yeah, it's still the same, language,
but,
I guess.
Yeah,
right?
but there's
differences.
differences. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so So yeah, so I am grateful for the experiences that I had in college. I tried to look at the past, even the bad experiences, like maybe companies that I didn't really enjoy working for, stuff like that. And I tried to look at the past in gratitude, right? Regardless if they're good or bad. I know it's easier said than done, but I try to practice that. So
yeah, I mean, it's often you can often learn more from the bad than the good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, good, Kenneth. I'm glad you enjoyed college to some degree.
Did you guys enjoy college?
Yeah, I enjoyed college. I mean, I perceive college now, and even perceived it then, as being some vehicle to prepare you for the future, right? That's generally what we think about as education. I think college, in hindsight now, is terrible for that. It's not good for that at all. I definitely had some good teachers and definitely learned some things that stick with me and are still useful, but by and large it was a poor use of time and money. Super inefficient for what I wanted, right? For what I wanted to get out of it, horribly inefficient.
Yeah, I think that sums it up for me too. Yeah, they're good experiences. I probably wouldn't change, the past even if I could, but yeah, I think there are some key things like the people I met, the relationships I made, maybe a handful of lessons. But we're talking, because I have an advanced degree, we're talking like 6+ years of school, and the majority of what I got out of it is like a handful of people and a handful of lessons, and I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I'm probably not giving enough weight to or not remembering right now, but overall I would agree with Jordan that like for the amount of time spent, especially the amount of money spent, and then considering what your opportunity cost was, what you could have been doing instead, it doesn't seem like it was that effective, because perhaps I could have been doing a job, learning real world skills, making money instead of shelling out money, still meeting friends, still developing skills, still educating myself, just not in things that are generic like history, English, math, right? And so I don't know, it's hard for me to say that it was really valuable, or at least worth the amount of time and money invested.
Seems like for all of us, if we had had a good job opportunity, or if we were advising someone right now, they're 18 or 19 or even 20, right? You have a decent job opportunity versus should I go to college? You should hands down take the job opportunity and just build your career that way. Yeah. There's some specific skill that you need, like coding, Kenny mentioned, or whatever, any engineering discipline, right? Just learn it on the side in your own time, and you'll get much more value out of the time spent at even a half-decent job opportunity than you would spending that same time in college.
Especially if that job opportunity is at one of those tech companies that'll pay for your education, especially like at least if it's in a relevant field. Then you get to get paid and take the classes for free on the side. You don't rack up any debt. You're not deferring any income. I think that's the better way to go about it.
Yeah. Well, I have a few comments. I mean, I'm currently not a fan of the college system, generally speaking. But what I'm not saying is that nobody should go to college, right?
Right.
Maybe college is fitting for some people.
Well, and some people have to, right? Like, there's no way you're going to be a medical doctor or a lawyer without passing through that gauntlet of college. It's not going to happen, period.
And this is aside, but part of it is because government tape, because they added anyway, but regardless.
Yeah, well, it was the government through the professionals themselves, right? As the doctors and lawyers saying, we want a barrier to entry. No,
Yeah.
Not just anyone off the street can do what I want, so let's hire a lobbyist to go to Washington and make sure that not anyone can be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in the past, to become a lawyer, you could actually be an apprentice. You actually could actually work under the tutelage of a lawyer and become a lawyer.
In general, law isn't really related to any subject that you study in school other than law itself, right? It's very different from things like history, English, science, math,
Newtonian physics.
right? Completely irrelevant. So there's nothing. So the way you can tell if something's just a barrier to entry is whether or not the bachelor's degree you have to apply is restricted to a few relevant ones. For example, pre-med is more of a viable like example for the necessity of a bachelor's degree, because they say you have to have these biology classes, you have to have these chemistry classes, right? And so there are actual things that they want you to have as a foundation of knowledge going in. But look at law school. You can have any undergraduate major for pretty much any law school in the country, which only evidence is that it's not necessary. There's no reason to have one other than a filtering mechanism, a barrier to entry, like Jordan said.
Yeah. So there's a whole history of how that came to be, right? And so in order to become a lawyer today, you have to shell out tons of money and tons of time and tons of stress, right? But yeah, so, I mean, it could be fitting for some people, right? And so if, for example, obviously, as of today, if you want to become a doctor or a lawyer, as we previously mentioned, you have to go to college, right? Or if you want to become a scholar of sorts, maybe, or an intellectual, like of sorts, then yeah, you have to kind of go through that process of going to college. So it could be fitting for some people, right?
Yeah.
Right. Liberal arts colleges, is supposed to give you kind of a general education, right? As a whole education to better yourself. And if you want to do that, right? At least that's what, from my understanding, that's what college was served as, previously to the college boom industry now. Right? Then yeah, you should probably go to college if you want to read poetry and whatnot. Yeah, you guys get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, but to say that you have to go to college in order to succeed in life, or you have to go to college as a rite of passage, I think is wrong, right? And you have to go to college to have, to earn a living. I think is wrong.
But yeah, it's reversed, because in the past it was like, oh, you're one of the few people that went, therefore, yeah, you stand out. Now it's like, oh, you're one of the few people who didn't go, now you stand out in a negative way. Yeah,
and the Praxis, the founder of Praxis would say this: if you're 18, right? And you don't really have any direction,
which is most of them.
Yes,
yeah.
But
I want to play Minecraft, right? Or Fortnite, whatever the flavor of the week is.
Yeah, and you say, let's say you tweet that, or this person tweets that I'm going to college, even though that person absolutely has no direction, has no declared major, or whatnot. People will be congratulating that person, saying, congrats,
no one
awesome.
Will question you.
Yes, exactly, Jordan. Like, nobody will question you whatsoever. But if you say, if you're 18 and you say, yeah, I'm just going to go directly to the workforce, I'm going to take up this apprenticeship, I'm not even going to go to college whatsoever, right? And you have some direction in your life. And you tweet out that I'm not going to go to college. I'm not going to follow what everybody else does, right? I think that person and you may think I'm exaggerating, but you'd be surprised the experiences some people
Yeah,
have
you'll be
had.
challenged,
Yeah.
especially if you're considered a smart person. If you're not considered to be one of the more intelligent, they're like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense that he should go and be a welder or make furniture. Or whatever.
Yeah. And by the way, those professions shouldn't be, what do you call it?
Looked down on.
Looked down on as much as it is in society. But yeah, people will challenge you, be like, what are you doing with your life? You should go to college, on and on, right? And so, yeah, you have different societal expectations, even today, about the college issue.
Yeah. So who is the founder of Praxis? Who is this person?
Well, my internet's not working really well, but I'm going to look it up. I'm trying to look it up right now.
Wait a minute. Don't you have a device in your pocket that's capable of searching the internet?
Yes, he does, and
His name is Isaac Morehouse.
Isaac Morehouse.
Yeah, and he is a libertarian. He happens not that all good business are created by libertarians, but he happens to be a libertarian.
All right.
Yeah, and says Praxis is a for-profit apprenticeship program in the United States. It places young people at paid positions with startup companies. Participants in the program are not required to have a college degree. Praxis was founded by Isaac Morehouse in 2013. Has a Wikipedia page even. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's on Wikipedia. It's legit.
Yeah. So, would you agree with what we've been talking about with education, Jordan, generally?
What about it? That it's government controlled?
Yeah. Well,
Are you talking about primary education, like K through 12, or more college?
I guess maybe well,
So as far as K through 12 goes, I send my kids there because it's summer camp during the school year.
Mm-hmm.
So all of my kids go into kindergarten already knowing how to read. They all know how to read. Not that we teach them how to read. We just read so much, right?
Yeah.
That they pick some up, and they like reading so much that they just gain some skill on their own, right? There's innate desire to be able to read these books that I'm interested in, so they figure it out. And some of them even are interested enough in math so that they can do addition and subtraction, and even some simple multiplication before they go in. I don't send them to public school to learn. I send them there so they can be busy.
Yeah.
And just have something to do in meaningful social interaction. So that's the way I see it, right? As I guess, as Tim mentioned, kind of like babysitting.
Yeah.
Free babysitting. More than that, though, because it gives them social interaction. So as far as like the value, like what do I think is good about public schools? The social interaction.
Yeah.
Right? Either the friends or the conflicts that you have with people you don't get along with there, I think is... It's what I send my kids for, right?
Yeah.
Just that part of it. Some of them have asked to be homeschooled, to which we responded basically, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Not that we couldn't teach you, rather you wouldn't want to learn from us. Like I try and teach my kids sometimes, like, this is what pi is. It's the diameter over the circumference. And they say, I don't care. Can we turn on the TV? So, for my particular brood of children, homeschooling just wouldn't work. And I think the thing that most of them, that they most need, all of them, is the social interaction that they get from going to the public schools. So, which you could also get from a private school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Public
yeah.
schools don't have any secret sauce that way. They just need to be in a space with other people doing something that's not at home. That's my take on primary education.
Yeah.
And then they should be thinking, like, when you're 14 to 18, since we kind of see you as an adult at 18, you should be doing some sort of training for the future to provide for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's no, like, direct transition into that, though, Even in college, a lot of... The focus isn't really on, you're here to be able to provide for yourself.
Nope.
Yeah. It's not even you're here to be able to learn how to think and act.
No.
And I would say those are probably the two main things I would want to learn or want someone else to learn in higher education, or even, K through 12, is learn how to think and act, and learn how to provide for yourself, learn how to survive.
I got a couple of ideas for like college or high school. I mean, I haven't thought these out, and these aren't researched or anything. This is just me shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
The one is send them out to do hard menial labor, because then they can realize at a very young age, wow, this sucks. I should find a better way to provide for myself, right? Which is much better than being 18 or 19 and getting your girlfriend pregnant, and now you feel like you got to get married, or even if you don't, right? You got to get a job now to support this kid, because there's no way you're going to get away without paying any child support, right? And being forced just to take some job that you can get right now that might be horrible, versus being more mindful about your future. And I think hard labor might do that for you, right? Because you would figure things out that way, whereas you might not have got that living at mom and dad's house. So that's one. And then the other is like the praxis idea, right? If not necessarily an apprenticeship right away, like if you're not ready to make that level of commitment, figure out what you're interested in, right? What you could tolerate doing as your job, because you are going to have a job or live on disability. I guess maybe you could explore that too.
Yeah.
Would I enjoy living on disability? I don't think most people would.
No.
But it should be more of an exploratory time, right? So not even learning concrete skills, learning what concrete skills should I learn, right? So I can learn to code. Do I even like that?
Right. Am I good at it? Is it natural? Yeah.
Or even if I like coding, do I want to be working on enterprise software, right? Making insurance software, healthcare software, whatever. You might think that's super duper boring. You might love coding, but you don't want to make boring enterprise software.
Right.
So, I think one of those two things, either hard labor your way into discovering that you should, be invested in your future, or just make it more of an exploratory time for you to figure out what you actually care about and you could tolerate doing as a career.
I like it.
And you don't need a school for either of those, right? You just need someone who's not your parent to say, here's your shovel, you're going out to dig a ditch today. Or here is a list of industries that exist within 20 miles of your home, right? You're going to go to one of these, and you're going to talk to people there about what they do for their job and what the skills are. And you're going to spend a week learning some of these skills. And then you'll decide at that point if you should keep exploring or if you really like this and you could make a go of it.
Right. I think my problem when I was around that age, like, so say 17-ish was, or even all the way up through probably 24, was there's so much out there that I don't even know about, that you kind of get overwhelmed, maybe even decision paralysis. Like, you don't even know where to start. You don't even know what you aren't interested in or what you are interested in. There's so much that you just have to kind of start going in some direction and start crossing things off the list, basically,
Yeah.
At the very least, start finding things that you don't like, and that'll start narrowing the range, because you're taking a set that includes everything and looking at it like what should my future be? I have no clue. There's endless possibilities, but then as you start moving forward and trying things, you can say no, maybe, no, and just start charting a course until you come across something,
Yeah.
I think
At least find a theme among the things that you don't hate, right?
Yeah.
Well, also, I think a good thing to encourage children to do, or children to do is I don't know, maybe explore, like, kind of creating their own small business, if you will, like be kind of entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Encourage them to pursue that path, even if they fail, right? Because
Kids absolutely need that. I mean, my kids can't learn it from me.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest boy says, I'm not 16, so I can't get a job, which is nonsense, right?
Yeah.
For all the opportunities that are available in the world right now, you do not have to work at McDonald's to make money. You absolutely don't. So is it easy to become a YouTube star? No, it's not. But you could do something to make money, right? You absolutely can. There are opportunities beyond being an employee.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the public school model that we have is actually based on Prussia, which was a historically prominent German state that originated in 1525. And so they instituted, so Prussia instituted these schools for the primary reason of making the children better, more obedient citizens.
Yeah, cogs in a machine. That's what it's designed to output.
Cogs in the machine, right?
Yes.
And so that's where our public school model is based upon, right? And so it's no surprise to me that school is just preparing children to be kind of cogs in the machine.
Oh yeah, I mean,
put it bluntly.
I mean, everyone who's been through it, I think, can see that. Like, one of the things that I learned and had reinforced throughout my entire public education experience was that you don't question things.
Yeah,
you know?
You're supposed to follow orders, right?
Yes, you're supposed to follow orders. You're not supposed to question things.
Yeah, regardless of the situation, regardless of whether the orders, the teachers that barking the orders is right or wrong.
There were some that didn't, but the vast majority of teachers I had, if you questioned anything about the curriculum, about what they were teaching, anything, or even pointed out mistakes in their material or whatnot, they took it personally, got offended, got upset, and used their authority to punish you.
Yeah. And so, anyway, I could go on and on about public schools, but yeah, it seems that, public schools are some sense in a way to make us, kind of more obedient citizens of the U.S. government, kind of unquestioning.
Wait a minute,
citizens.
Is this a conspiracy theory, Mr. Buu?
No, I don't necessarily think it's a conspiracy theory, right? I mean, what I remember, in elementary school, seeing Pledge Allegiance to the flag every single morning, right? When history is taught in schools, right, where you get the U.S. perspective, that the U.S. was, for the most part in the right, in
so
terms
it's
of world
overt
history.
government control, you feel?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I agree with it.
Anyway, that's what I mean. It's historically that's what our public schools are based on, is the old Prussian model, which was to make obedient, loyal citizens. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're not directly taught how to think for yourself. You're not taught to question anything in class. Most of what you're given is just assignments to keep you busy, not to make you think, not to make you improve your skills in criticism or analytics or anything like that. It's like, here's what we're feeding you, and we want you to regurgitate it over and over again.
Yeah, instead of teaching you how to think, it teaches you what to think for the most part.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I had some teachers that broke that mold.
Yeah, and I had a few teachers too. Yes.
They were the good ones, but it's like the Robin Williams Dead Poet Society teacher, that kind of goes against
the grain.
The grain, right? Yeah, and says, what I want to teach you guys is to think for yourselves.
Yeah.
So.
And he was fired in that movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's aside, but
spoilers.
Yeah, come on, spoilers.
Just ruined Dead Poet Society for anyone who hasn't seen it.
It's been existing for decades.
Came out in the 90s. Yeah,
it's been existing for decades.
You've had enough time to see it. It's been around long enough. Yeah. So, I was in a car accident yesterday.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I was just on my way home from work. I was probably 100 yards from my house, just turning left.
So one of your neighbors hit you.
No, it was the mother of one of my neighbors.
Ah.
Yeah. So I was just turning left, and she was also trying. She was So it was at an intersection where she had a stop sign and I didn't, and she was on my left, and so I was turning left, and she was also going to turn left, and I guess she didn't see me coming at all. So as I was turning left past her, she just rammed forward right into my driver's side, wrecked the driver's side rear door, completely tore my tire. Yeah, it's in bad shape, unfortunately. So it's gonna have to go in and get fixed.
So how did she react?
There are a few things I have to say about this. So she had a stop sign, I didn't. Clearly, she was at fault. Clearly. There's no other way around it, right? She was at a stop sign. She was supposed to yield. I had right of way. I was turning. She drove forward and rammed me on the side, T-boned me. Okay? So the officer comes to the scene. I tell him that. I'm like, okay, I was just making a left turn here. She rammed me. And then he pulls her over and he's like, okay, what's your side of the story? And she's like, oh, yeah, well, he didn't signal the turn. He didn't signal.
Was that true?
I'm 90% sure it's not true.
Okay.
But here's where I have a lot to say. The officer says, well, you know, a lot of people don't signal in Utah, so I believe her. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, well, I know because I always check. So here's what I'm thinking. I didn't talk back, but here's what I'm thinking. Number one, how can you trust the eyewitness testimony of someone who didn't see my car and rammed into it? That's the number one reason right there, okay? Okay, number two is, why trust the eyewitness testimony of the one person who has a conflict of interest in the outcome, right? You're going to go to the person who's at fault and say, you know, what's your side of the story? Oh, he didn't have a signal on. I mean, this doesn't really change anything, but I'll get to that in a second. And so it's like, okay, obviously she has incentive to try to put some of the blame on me. She's not a neutral party.
No.
So why does her word count more than mine? Third, why am I being punished because a lot of people in Utah don't signal? How does what they do have anything to do with what I did? That's a complete logical fallacy, if you ask me, right? And then lastly, fourth, he's an officer of the law. He knows better than anyone that human memory and eyewitness testimony are garbage. Garbage. Unless you have physical evidence. If you had a camera recording of me not signaling the turn, then fine, right? Not having that, just having the eyewitness testimony of one person who has a conflict of interest is garbage. And even me, myself, like, I'm pretty sure I did, especially if I ever see somebody sitting there waiting, like at a stop sign, and their behavior depends on what I'm going to be doing, I always freaking signal. Like, that's why I say I'm 90% sure, because there's maybe a small chance that I didn't, but how would I know? Like, human memory is flawed and can't be trusted. So can I ever say for sure that I know I did or didn't? Probably not. It's not something that I was really paying attention to or that I thought would matter. And so I think all those things combined make that allegation complete garbage, okay? So at the very end, after he did his whole like report and whatever, and he was like giving us, you know, the details and saying, okay, you guys can go now. He said to me, you should be cited for not signaling, but I'm going to let you off this time. And I was like, what? Like, I was flabbergasted. I could not believe that he went so far as to basically determine, judge that I was guilty of something he had zero evidence of, under completely BS circumstances, right? So, like, to me, that's just complete garbage. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. Unbelievable.
What was your response?
So when a cop is there and he tells you, yeah, I'm not going to cite you this time, you don't argue with him.
Tim deferred to authority.
Are you really a true libertarian, Tim, if you don't? If you just defer to authority all the time? Come on.
I think my behavior was justified in that situation. If he had tried to actually give me the ticket, then yes, I would have given him a piece of my mind. But since, I mean, think about it. Like, look, sure, I'm a libertarian, but he's not a normal citizen. He is a medieval knight. He is one of the king's men. He is above me in the eyes of the law. He can, for any reason whatsoever, decide that he wants to take my money, take my car, throw me in jail. He can do whatever the freak he wants with no repercussions. So why would I ever stand up to that guy face to face, especially under the circumstances where he's saying, I'm letting you off this time?
Yeah. I don't know. So, okay. So as a libertarian, of course, I generally don't trust the cops because I think agents of the state, at the local level.
I'm on board with that.
Yes.
This guy seemed nice until that point, where he was like, yeah, I would have, you should be cited for not signaling. And I was just like, what?
Yeah, well, and I do recognize that, you can't resist. There's a certain point where you just can't resist the state.
Think about it. He could have pulled out his gun and shot me and gotten away with it. He could have. He just said, I feared for my life. He looked at me threateningly. He had a gun on him, and it looked like he was going to go pull it.
It's true. Chances are you, anyway.
Yes, I was carrying.
Yeah, and so I do recognize, there's a certain point where you just don't resist state, like taxes, of course. If I don't I don't like paying taxes, but if I resist paying taxes, obviously,
you get thrown in a cage and or killed. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And so you as libertarian don't like the fact that we drone strike people that have not had due process and may be innocent.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go that far. But
and your money that you earn through your job goes to support that. But you trying to opt out of that system will result in violence or death for you. So to some degree, despite the fact that you disagree with the system, you often have to comply in order to not end up dead or in a cage.
Yes. Well,
and that is the circumstance under which we live. That's the reality of it.
Yes. Well. Yes. Yeah. Or right. So I've been cited for speeding in the past, and I think it's unjust because whenever they pull me over, it's anyway. I've never. It was as a result of car crash, right? It's victimless crimes type of thing. But anyway, maybe you think differently about that. But,
it's tricky because in that case you could be potentially putting others in danger. But yeah, it really depends on the circumstances.
Yeah.
In general, I would agree with the overall sentiment that typically speeding tickets are just a way of making more money for the state.
Yes, I do believe it's generally a way for them to make money, more than anything else. But yeah, but in this scenario, but I guess my point is this scenario, like I would have likely spoke up saying, but you don't, at first I would say, well, you don't have proof that, that I didn't signal just because everybody did.
The thing,
let's not, I mean, I think you would have a valid point to bring that up. It's like, because it would affect the way that he reports the accident, right? And if he's biased towards the other person,
you have to consider the situation too. Like, kind of like read the room, you might say. Like, and here's the scenario. So the officer comes, talks to me. I tell him my story. I'm just like, this is what happened. That's it. And he goes and talks to the old lady that hit me, and she's just like close to tears, and she's like, I'm a retired ER nurse and all this stuff, and And the cop was just totally like, oh, it's okay, ma'am. Yeah, it's okay. And then like later on when he's writing at the report, he's like, I'm sorry, but yeah, I am going to have to put you down as the one at fault in the report. And I know, and I'm sorry, but that's just, you're supposed to yield, even if he wasn't considerate and didn't, and was in violation by not signaling.
Oh, so he did place her at fault.
Oh, he did.
Okay, never mind. Then okay, that changes the game.
And so he put her at fault, and he didn't cite me, and so that's why I wasn't about to fight him on anything, right?
Okay. Well, you didn't mention that previously.
Okay, so
Okay.
But the way he did it, he was clearly wanting to punish me instead of her. But he's just like, yeah, based on the circumstances, sorry, but he's the one who isn't going to be at fault.
Yeah. Well, even then,
he clearly wanted it to be me, though. He wanted it to be me.
Even then, I would have been very, if I was in your situation, very tempted to speak out a little bit, saying, like, what basis? Anyway, like, you have no basis to even cite me for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Well, yeah. Well, what this kind of Go ahead.
I already had enough to deal with having to get my car fixed. I didn't want to have to deal with any more pain that the officer could have easily inflicted upon me at his own whim.
Okay. So that does make sense, given that he did put her at fault.
Yes. There was no way around it. There was no way. And he knew it, but he was still very like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, you have to be at fault, old lady. Yeah, it's, you really should have yielded. And it's, come on, man. She freaking rammed me as I was making a normal turn, and I'm 90% sure I had my signal on anyway. And, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of is that, so psychologically, so psychologists have absolutely concluded, at least from my understanding, that humans are more emotional than rational, generally speaking.
Okay.
They act more on emotions.
I believe it.
Right, and so there's this kind of social psychologist named Jonathan Haidt. Yeah, Haidt. I think that's how you pronounce it, Jonathan Haidt. So he's considered one of the top foreign thinkers by various publications, right? Top 100 thinkers, and so I love what he has to say. But one of the things he says is that so he wrote a book called The Righteous Mind. And basically in the book, he talks about how our attempts to convince people of our position is completely and absolutely flawed, because we think we can convince others based on reason.
Interesting.
Which is not true. In order for us to generally convince others, we have to work with emotions.
Perhaps. I feel like I'm more convinced by reason than emotion, though, personally.
Well, I mean...
Maybe I'm wrong.
Well,
maybe that's the emotional me speaking. Jordan, what do you think?
Yep, emotional Tim.
Doesn't want to admit that he's irrational.
Yeah, he's telling rational Tim, yeah, we're totally rational.
Mm-hmm.
Don't listen to Kenny. You're the exception.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the classic example, of course, is trying to convince people politically of your position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could give statistics, and all the facts, right? And incontrovertible evidence of your position. But really what's happening, for the most part, it seems like the person is not really listening to you, but is thinking of a response. How are we going to rebut this person?
Mm-hmm.
And the points that are being made, rather than actually listening and considering, the evidence that's being presented, the reasons at hand. And so, as much as, so a lot of times, especially in this day and age, we tend to think that we're the, or at least some people think that we're the products of the Enlightenment, when it's completely off base. We're still humans, right? We still act very emotionally. right? And again, the political world is always the prime example. But if you look at elections, it's of course it's emotional, right? You slander the other candidates, how terrible they are. You promise them, quite honestly, free things, right? Regardless of how irrational it may be, to provide those things, and people eat it up, right?
Yeah.
And by your votes, or are drawn into voting for that particular candidate, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Look at political ads, right? It's all emotional, right?
For sure. Yeah. I agree with that.
Well, granted, males tend to. I mean, we're all humans, so we're all emotional, but it's true that males tend to be more, at least more rational.
Careful, you're going to get us restricted on YouTube, Kenneth.
This man's making sexist comments.
Well, I mean, I'm just talking about psychologically. Women tend to be even more emotional than males. Let's put it that way, generally speaking. So anyway, the reason why I'm bringing that up, because, it's quite possible the officer, with dealing with the female that crashed into you, crying.
She wasn't crying, but she was like
acting emotionally.
Yeah.
And, that he was kind of caught up in that and was like, maybe he really didn't signal, and if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe.
Because was taken by her emotional.
I think for sure that is what happened. I think he instantly took her side. Instantly. Yeah,
based on emotions.
Right.
Yeah, likely so, right?
Yeah. And to some degree, I feel like she was putting on an act. Like, I mean, maybe not that the way she was acting was fake, but that she was definitely counting on it winning him over. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, maybe subconsciously.
Right.
You think? Yeah. And so the positions. So Jonathan Haidt says the positions that we take are mostly. A lot of the positions that we take are based on an emotional level, but we rationalize the positions that we have, even though the underlying reasons why is because they're emotional, but we we give reasons to the positions that we have, as if the real reasons why we take those positions because of rationality, if that makes sense.
Seems plausible to me. How are we doing on time, Jordan?
Well, let's see here.
It's
according to my device, we're at 2:30. Is this our longest episode yet?
I think so. We might have surpassed the
Is
Tyler
is this subject kind of boring, you guys?
No, it's not. It's not.
You're the guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if if people have time constraints, we can wrap if we need.
Yeah, we could wrap it up. But I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Right? Just who we are as humans.
Was there anything that you hoped to talk about today that we haven't covered?
Yeah, actually. This is going to sound random, but I was actually hoping to talk about the movie Gladiator. So.
Say what? Russell Crowe?
Yeah, with Russell Crowe.
Came out in the mid-2000s? When did that come out?
Well, because
it was 2000. Yeah.
I recently rewatched it, so it's been on my mind.
Tell us about Gladiator.
Well, I don't know if we have enough time.
We do.
We do. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere.
Well, people are probably going to drop out. Anyway.
Well, that's the joy
I only
of the
have one
internet.
thing to say to those people who want to drop out. Are you not entertained? Okay.
If you
Take
really
it away.
loved us, you would listen to every minute of this show.
For those who didn't get it, that's a line from
Yes,
Gladiator, the film.
It is. So take it away.
I didn't get it. I've not seen the film. So you're going to totally spoil it for me.
Oh,
Have
it's
you
not.
never seen the film?
No, and I'm never going to.
He's had 19
Spoil it.
years to see it. I'm pretty sure it came out in 2000.
Wait. So no judgment here. This is because it's rated R. Is that why?
No, I only vaguely remember it coming out, and I didn't say to myself then, I'm not going to see that, or I am going to go see that. It's just another movie.
So you're neutral. You're like, not really too interested, but
I mean, I'm talking about myself in, when did it come out? 2000?
2000, yeah.
2000. So probably at the time, I was in high school. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just didn't even think about it.
I went with my crew in high school. We went and saw it.
Was it epic?
It was good. We liked it, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it was well received,
Yeah.
but not to the point where I was like, man, everybody loves this. I need to see it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it was like incredible, but it was great. It was a good movie.
I thought
You thought it was incredible?
freaking incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for Kenny's freaking incredible review of freaking Gladiator.
Well, it's not really a review, but maybe more of an analysis.
All right, let's analyze it.
But yeah, I thought it was incredible. Like, it's an awesome story of a Roman general who hit rock bottom, lost his family, his wife, and his kid, and became a slave.
So how does that come about? Did he fall out of favor with the emperor?
No, the emperor named him as a successor instead of his own son.
Oh.
So the emperor's son, when he found out that the dying emperor was going to name Maximus as the successor.
Let's just call him Russell Crowe.
Yeah, Russell Crowe. Yeah.
I would make Russell Crowe my successor.
Yeah, I would too. But yeah, so he
That guy has a beautiful mind.
Yeah. He set him up to basically lose everything in order to take the throne from himself.
Okay, so intrigue. He loses it all through
Commodus,
intrigue.
that's his name, right?
Well,
Commodus?
he kills
his wife.
his
yeah,
father.
and he tries to kill him. Oh yeah, he actually
does kill his father.
Yes,
Come on,
before.
Tim.
Yeah, right. You're right. But his father was already dying. He was on his deathbed, naming Maximus as a successor.
Well,
So he finished him off before he could announce it.
He wasn't literally on his deathbed. I mean, he could walk, but
He was
old.
I thought he was in the process of dying and saying, "I'm going to name that Maximus as my successor."
Yeah, maybe in a few years. But,
Okay,
but
I don't fully remember it then. Okay,
He wasn't
I haven't
literally
seen it
on his deathbed.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
You're going to have to be our fact checker, Kenny. You're the
Yeah.
only one that has seen the movie and recently.
Well,
Yeah.
Tim has seen it.
I've seen it, just not recently.
2000?
I think I may have seen it since then, one more
Oh,
time,
okay.
but I haven't seen it in the last 10 years, probably.
Okay, so he loses everything because of politics,
Uh-huh.
and then...
Yeah, so he loses everything because he refuses to submit to the new emperor, who's the murderer of his father, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he was this great Roman general. He hits rock's bottom, becomes a slave, right? And completely loses his family, right? Because the new emperor ordered his family to be massacred, essentially.
Yeah.
And so he becomes this, he hits rock bottom, becomes a slave, right? And, so he's a slave. Okay. Here's an actual quote from. It's better to actually read from the script. The general who became a slave, the slave who became a gladiator, the gladiator who defied an emperor. A striking story. So I don't know.
I can see that why that would appeal to you. I mean, based on everything we've discussed so far.
Yeah.
So you see Russell Crowe as an every libertarian.
In some sense, yeah.
Or do you see him differently than that? Is that not where you were going?
No.
I thought we were going to plug the libertarian thing again.
Well, I
Challenging the state.
didn't even mention. Yeah, well, yeah. So I guess maybe that's part of the reason why I'm attracted to the story is because I am a libertarian, and it's a guy who hit rock's bottom but rises up to defy an
Tyranny,
empire,
yeah.
right? Or the emperor, right?
One gladiator can make a difference.
Yeah, or how can and another line he makes is like, I'm just paraphrasing him here. He says, I'm just a slave. Well, what difference can I make, right? Mm-hmm. And he does make a difference, right? And so there's this. Anyway, there's so much I could say, but I don't want to overdo it. But there's one part that I do want to that maybe I can mention is that so there's a scene in which Marcus Aurelius, who was the father, the emperor that was murdered by his son, that was about to be murdered. Anyway, he has a scene with Maximus, or in other words, Russell Crowe. And in the scene, he's about to offer Maximus, saying, Rome has to be a republic. We should stop this empire thing, and we should fix the corruption that's in the Senate, and restore the republic type of thing, right? And he was about to kind of pass the succession, if you will, to Maximus, saying, you're not a politician. I know you don't want this position. That's exactly the person that needs to have this job, right? And you're popular, you're a successful general, right? You should have this position, and not my son who has these attributes he's not fit to be emperor. That, right? Anyway, that's a long explanation. And so, in the scene, Marcus tells Maximus, or Russell Crowe, tell me again, Maximus, why are we here? For the glory of and so Maximus responds, for the glory of the empire, sir. Right? And anyway, fast forward in the scene a little bit, and Marcus Aurelius, who seems to have a faith crisis here. He's like, why are we doing this? Why are we expanding this empire, through, military conquest, right? He seems to have a faith crisis. This is making sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
so he used to be expanding through conquering. He's like, oh, did I do the wrong thing?
Yeah, or is this the right thing to do? Or what is Rome exactly, right? And so he asked, and what is Rome, Maximus? And Maximus responds, I have seen much of the rest of the world. It is brutal and cruel and dark. Rome is the light. Right? So it's interesting. So the movie begins in battle. The movie begins, right? Rome is preparing for battle at the last part of the known conquered, of the known world, if you will, right? And this is like their last military campaign, right? And Maximus leads the way, and they're successful at this, right? And if you look at that scene, if you look at the color scheme of that scene, it is dark, it is grayish, right? And I think that was intentional. Maybe this is hard for you to listen since you haven't seen the movie, but
this is great. I read plot summaries on Wikipedia all the time.
Oh, really? Before even watching the movie?
Instead of watching movies.
Instead of watching the
That's
movie.
right.
Okay. Yeah, right. So, right, and they're successful, and yeah, the color scheme is dark and grayish, right? And I tend to think that was intentionally done because that's how Rome viewed the rest of the world, right? And so Maximus saying, the rest of the world is brutal, cruel, and dark, and Rome is light, right? Implying that as Rome conquers, right, as I lead my army to conquer, that we are bringing the light of Rome to the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's for their own good.
Yes, for their own good.
We're making
exactly.
them eat vegetables.
Yeah.
By bringing them into the empire.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's this tension, maybe this is kind of aside, and I kind of mentioned it before, but there's tension in the movie about Rome being as a republic, a republic. I mean, I'm not talking about the Republican part, of course. I'm talking about like a republic means a system of laws, right, that you're governed, where individual
system of representation, typically, right?
Yeah, but it's not a democracy. Democracy is mob rule.
Right.
This
is representative rule.
Yeah, and where there's limits on governments, and right, as a Roman citizen, you have certain rights, right, that you can claim, right, right, and there's tension between a republic and empire, right. Anyway, and I think this is kind of reflective of the United States. Granted, this was released in 2000, before 9/11 and whatnot. And so, how I view the United States, I think the United States, kind of similarly as Rome, the United States was founded as a constitutional representative republic, right? Where individual wasn't executed perfectly, but where the idea of individual rights was respected,
Yeah,
Right.
mostly.
Yeah, mostly.
As long as you weren't black.
Yeah,
Or an
that's
Indian,
why I said in perfectly.
or an
right?
Indian or a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had rights.
Yeah. Right? But
But it was definitely a step ahead of the rest of the
yeah,
world.
it was
right?
absolutely a step ahead of the rest of the world, right? And slavery is like one of the oldest institutions. Not to excuse it, but it was one of the oldest institutions. Anyway, that's an aside. And so right, and I think United States today has become an empire, a military empire, right? Where they're they have military presence in over 200 countries with 700 plus military bases or military installations, right? Currently, right, and so you see the same tension in the United States about, are we an empire or really a republic that we are founded upon, right? And it seems like the powers that be in the United States, especially during the President Bush era, saw themselves, we are the light of the world, if you will, to use kind of a scriptural term, right? And we are, when we are spreading freedom and democracy to the Middle East, that's, implicitly backwards, and dark and brutal, if you will. And we are doing good by militarily spreading ourselves to these countries, like Afghanistan or Iran, or Iraq, that is, right? Right, and so, right, and we should be welcome as liberators, type of thing. So again, I just see this parallel between Rome then and the United States today.
And does Russell Crowe or Maximus have a parallel? Doesn't have to. Just wondering if there's any more to your analogy, or if that's it. Just Rome and the U.S.
Well, I mean, I could go on and on, but I guess I don't know. I guess Russell Crowe represents, I don't know, somebody who's sticking it to the state. I don't know, somebody who whose duty, even after he died, whose duty he saw was to Marcus Aurelius, who wanted to restore the Republic, right?
So someone that's loyal more to the ideals than the current establishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's this thing about, like, what is Rome, right? Even in this dialogue, like, what is Rome? Is it just an empire? Is it just the government? Is it this physical boundaries? Or is it more of an idea, or is it a dream type of thing?
Right? Jordan B. were here, he'd say ideas have people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right? And even though Rome, was spreading, brutality, ironically enough, and death to the regions that they conquered, so does the U.S., I would say, does the same to the regions that they militarily get involved with. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, people may think I'm exaggerating, but this is documented pretty well. Like, anyway, civilian deaths left and right. Mm-hmm. Destroying infrastructures of countries. Like,
so Gladiator spoke to your political sensibilities, resonated with you.
Yeah, but it's like, you could say, it did speak to my political sensibilities, but I think
it's also a good story, right?
Yeah, it's a great story.
Rising up from,
right? It has
from nothing.
Great music.
From less than nothing, even.
Yeah.
Everybody loves an underdog.
Yeah, everybody loves the underdog.
That's why Kaladin's is the best story in the Stormlight archives.
Yeah, it's true.
To the point where you maybe shouldn't have had the other ones.
Yeah.
I know it's sacrilege for me to say that. I'm a mega novel hater. I don't like mega novels. Just one story, please. Or you can have two, maybe, if they merge at some point.
But Kaladin's story is very similar to Maximus's.
What story?
Kaladin. In Brandon Sanderson's book series,
Haven't read
Stormlight
that.
Archive. You should read it, Kenneth. It's great. Even though Jordan's talking trash, it is
What?
it's great. But
Kaladin's story is great.
The main character, at least the point of view character in the first book, is a guy who basically gets betrayed by his military commander, sent into slavery, ends up having to be in a slave army, and manages to survive and basically pull himself out of it and becomes. I'm not going to spoil anymore, Kenneth.
He's in a unit that's intended to die, right? Super high casualties. No one is expected to survive. Not a single person.
All because he did something good, and his commander wanted to cover it up. So,
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Joseph in the Bible. Technicolor, Joseph with the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Maximus does?
Well, I mean, not only Maximus, but this other story.
Kaladin?
Yeah, that one.
Sold into slavery?
Well, because Joseph was, favored from the 12 sons. He was favored the most by his father, and they were jealous of him. And so, as a result, they left him. They contemplated killing him, but they were like, let's have some mercy on him.
that's why you're not supposed to pick favorites amongst your kids.
And they sold him into slavery, right?
They sure did.
Right? And throughout this process, he was imprisoned, and yet he still rose as the Prince of Egypt, even over his brothers that sold him into slavery.
Yeah, they all bowed to him.
Right? And I'm sure Jordan Peterson would love to, dig into that story. This character arc.
I imagine he already has.
It's not in his lectures, though.
No, I don't think he has.
But that's because he's still in the first chapters of Genesis in his lecture series. It just moves
They'll
super
get there
slow.
eventually.
Yeah,
Joseph is in Genesis.
He hasn't talked about Joseph, right?
No, he hasn't. Not as far as I know. I haven't heard everything yet, but
Jordan Peterson is big onto character. What do you call it?
arcs.
Archetypes. Arcs.
And the hero's journey and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So Joseph would definitely be an example
Absolutely.
of that hero's journey. I would say.
Yeah, but right now he mostly talks about Cain and Abel because he's just at the very beginning of the Bible, so he hasn't gotten very far in the book. But anyway, should we wrap and go to lunch?
Yeah.
I'm starving.
Yeah. Well, did I at least inspire you, Jordan, to watch Gladiator or not? Or
Maybe he'll read the
not
Wikipedia
really.
article.
No. You gave me such a moving summary, right? I feel like I got the main theme, so...
It's different from watching.
I can invest.
I've tried before, Kenny. Give it up. I've tried
to get him to watch other things.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has watched some things though, so sometimes it works.
Yeah, I've watched some things.
Are you libertarian? Is how to ask.
If I were to align anywhere politically, that would probably be it. I don't think
So then
that fit
small
neatly.
L, yeah.
Small.
That's what I would say too, small L.
Definitely not Republican. Definitely not Democratic.
Yeah.
Well, just to wrap up, you said, I like this movie because it speaks to my political sensibilities, right? And that's true enough, right? But I think there's something deep about liberty, and not in the superficial, go America type of way, but fireworks.
Yeah.
But
respecting that other people might see things differently, and so they should be able to act differently without us inflicting our will on them.
Yeah. Or just being truly free. Anyway. Never mind. Let's just end this.
Kenneth Buu is in favor of liberty. You heard it here, folks.
Yep.
That was a rough ending for me. But.
No, it was great.
Yeah.
Sure,
Good
people
stuff.
are wiping tears off of their faces right now.
And they're all going to go watch Gladiator, so we should get royalties from
and then
whoever.
Independence Day as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on this podcast today, Kenneth. It's been a pleasure. We did more than 2 hours, so that's definitely the record for now in episode length. But yeah, it was great.
Thanks again, Kenny.
Yep. So until next time, folks.